Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to dive right into one of the most haunting mysteries, and really one of the greatest profound losses in 20th century literature. We're talking about the life, the tragic death, and the absolutely extraordinary mind of the Polish-Jewish writer Bruno Schulz, and of course, the mythological masterpiece that completely vanished with him.
So I want you to think about this central paradox that's going to anchor our entire investigation today. What actually happens to a masterpiece when the person making it is murdered? Back in 1942, right in the middle of a horrific occupation, Bruno Schulz was shot and killed in the street. And at the exact moment his life ended, his life's greatest work, a manuscript he called the Messiah, was just sitting there, completely unguarded in his apartment. It was lost to history. But here's the thing we're exploring. How does a vanished book continue to shape the world it left behind?
Section 1. The Great Lost Masterpiece. Let's start by looking at the monumental void left behind by Schulz's life's work.
The crucial point you have to understand is that this manuscript wasn't just going to be another novel, not at all. It was meant to be the ultimate explanation of reality itself. Schulz didn't just write fiction, he was literally building complete cosmological models. He believed that matter was fundamentally unstable, always right on the verge of becoming something else. The Messiah was supposed to be the master key to his universe, this sprawling vision that tied together every deep thread of his imagination.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how Schulz viewed his relationship with this text. He didn't see himself as the creator of a story, but more like its temporary physical vessel. It was as if it was not a book he was writing, but a book that was somehow writing him. He carried pieces of it through the absolute horrors of the war like it was a vital organ. He was pouring every last ounce of his spiritual energy into these pages, basically trying to save his world just by explaining it.
Section 2, A Cosmology in Drohobych. Let's shift gears and examine the very specific town that forged his unique imagination.
You can really see the layered, almost geological strata of Drohobych's identity and its history. This town shifted rapidly, from the Austro-Hungarian era to Polish control, and then through these brutal Soviet and German occupations. But through it all, the town maintained this deep, ancient presence. Drohobych wasn't just a place Schulz lived, it was literally the substance of his imagination. He almost never left because leaving the town meant leaving the only landscape where his mind could truly operate.
To really grasp Schulz's universe, we have to understand this deeply rooted Kabbalistic concept, tikkun olam. It's the idea that the world is broken and human attention serves as a profound mechanism for cosmic repair. For Schulz, the physical act of writing, of paying absolute, hyper-focused attention to his town or capturing the dense smell of cinnamon in his father's fabric shop, that was his way of gathering scattered sparks of divine light. The artist isn't just making art, they're acting as a sort of cosmic repairman holding a fragile world together.
Because of this worldview, in his fiction, matter is never truly dead. If you've read his surviving works like The Street of Crocodiles, you'll remember his father literally transforms into a crab or a bird in the attic. And this isn't some quirky literary metaphor for Schulz, it's honest cosmological reporting. In his universe, the mundane is just the extraordinary waiting to be properly witnessed. Everything is always in motion.
Section 3. Protection of a Monster. Now we have to enter the darkest chapter, examining the impossible paradox of his physical survival.
Schulz lived in this unbearable, agonizing tension. Think about it. In Jewish folklore, you have the golem, an artificial monster made from clay just for immediate physical protection against violence. On the flip side, you have the Messiah, the figure of ultimate spiritual redemption arriving from outside of time. During the nightmare of the occupation, Schulz was relying on the immediate protection of an actual real-world monster just to survive long enough to write a book about ultimate redemption.
And that real-world monster was Felix Landau, a ruthless Gestapo officer who was actively murdering the Jewish population of Drohobych. But Landau claims Schulz as his quote-unquote personal artist. So you have this staggering situation where Schulz is temporarily spared by a murderer, forced to paint delicate fairy tale murals in a Gestapo officer's child's bedroom. He's painting princesses and carriages while his 2,000-year-old community is being methodically destroyed right outside those nursery walls.
It is a devastating historical irony. Those very murals, the horses, the fairy tale figures he painted just to appease a monster, were miraculously rediscovered totally intact in 2001, hidden under layers of paint. The walls survived. But the man and that great literary manuscript he was so desperately trying to finish in the shadows, they were completely erased.
Section 4. The day writing stopped. Let's focus on the specific, tragic day that the writing came to a permanent end.
It was November 19, 1942. The light was doing what November light does in Galicia, casting this low, amber glow. Schulz stepped out onto the street and walked straight into a completely arbitrary crossfire. Another SS officer, Karl Gunther, shot Schulz. Gunther didn't care who Schulz was. It was just petty, administrative retaliation because Felix Landau had killed someone Gunther was protecting. In a matter of seconds, an entire universe of thought was completely extinguished over a petty rivalry.
Let's just pause here for a second and really picture the absolute tragedy of that moment. Schulz wasn't making some grand cinematic final stand. He was just a genius walking home, participating in literally the oldest human act of survival. He had a warm loaf of bread in his hands. The profound, everyday vulnerability of that image, it just cuts straight to the bone.
And while he was holding that bread, lying in the street, the culmination of his entire life's work sat unguarded on a desk in his apartment. It was waiting for a creator who was never coming back. After he fell, his apartment was looted, and the pages of the Messiah vanished into the absolute chaos of the war. It left behind a silence in the literary world that is still deafening today.
Try to wrap your head around this number, 400. To truly grasp the loss of this one manuscript, we have to ground it in the macro tragedy. Out of Drohobych's original population of 15,000 Jewish residents at the start of the occupation, fewer than 400 survived. The loss of Bruno Schulz and his incredible masterpiece is just one agonizing focal point in an absolute ocean of systematic erasure.
Section 5. The Messiah always arrives. Finally, we must examine the philosophical legacy of this unimaginable absence.
Today, the manuscript resides in this sort of imaginary library of what wasn't. But its absence is incredibly powerful. The loss itself is now structurally part of his surviving work. Every quirky, beautiful story he wrote before 1942 is now permanently colored by the silence of what was supposed to come next. The bullet effectively wrote the final chapter, transforming his life's work into a permanent testament to what was stolen from us.
But remember Schulz's worldview. Matter is never dead, it ferments, it dreams. Even a lost, unseen manuscript continues its becoming. It's actively fermenting right now in our collective imagination. We, the readers who wonder about it, who are searching for meaning in the void it left behind, we become the very place where the manuscript continues to live and evolve.
In a weird way, the silence surrounding the book is actually its purest, most authentic state. In Schulz's own private mythology, the ultimate authentic book is something that can never truly be grasped or completed in the physical world. So, by vanishing into the flames of history, the Messiah became exactly what it was always meant to be, an untouchable ideal, a pure concept completely untethered from the flaws of reality.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought, straight from Schulz's worldview. He believed that waiting isn't passive. It's a vibrant, active state of readiness. The Messiah isn't a destination. What if the ultimate salvation isn't a finished book or perfect future, but the eternal, unbroken act of arriving? Thank you so much for exploring this profound mystery with us today. Keep questioning, keep arriving, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.